So welcome to the very first episode of Wrath of Pod podcast.
Excited about this podcast.
I'm Greg Fry.
I'm Chris Rochester.
We love movies, we love cocktails, and we get to combine them both on this podcast. Retro reviews and some drinks.
Yes, we've had some drinks already. Now we'll talk about a great movie.
Let's start the show. So for the very first episode of Wrath of Pod, obviously, we're going to talk about the biggest movie, one of the biggest movies in my life, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan.
Anyone that's a guy, especially in our age group, we're both 40s, you say, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, best Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
And it's a big movie.
Totally.
And if you're like me, I'm a sucker. My fiance makes fun of me all the time because I'll tear up at any movie where it's about teamwork.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's one guy's got each other's back and that kind of a thing. And this movie sets the tone for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's kind of the Star Trek motif. You know, Star Trek, for those of you listening and don't know, was a TV show. Only lasted like 3 seasons on NBC in the mid to late 60s. Then it was off the air and kind of gone.
And then Star Wars became a big movie.
76, 77.
When I say big movie, in case you didn't know, Star Wars at one time was the biggest movie of all time. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a hit. And Paramount said, what do we have that can be a space movie? And they said, hey, we got this Star Trek thing. Let's reboot that. And they did a really horrible movie.
Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Awful.
Spent a ton of money. I don't know that it was kind of a hit, but it wasn't a big hit.
No, it was panned by everyone. I have yet to ever in my life meet anyone or see a review that said, great movie.
Yeah, no, I was 9 or something when it came out, and it was boring, it was sleepy, and I did not like it at
It was
all.
awful.
But they spent a ton of money on it. They built some incredible sets, and they used some incredible, for its day, special effects, and they were able to utilize all that stuff to save a bunch of money to a Star Trek II sequel.
Yeah, even though the first one was awful, they said, well, let's try to do a second one, and we'll just put it on as a TV movie if it doesn't do well, but they have to do it for a budget of $15 million.
Yeah. But like I said, they used a lot of the same sets, saved a lot of money on building, used a lot of the same special effects shots that they used in the first movie, and that saved a ton of money. They spent a lot of money on the credits and on a certain video segment that you were...
Yes, George Lucas, believe it or not, made the first ever, when they're looking at Genesis Project,
right.
That's the first ever...
rebuilding the planet.
That's the first ever completely computer-generated scene in motion pictures.
Yeah. And Steve Jobs loved it so much, he bought that portion of the company of Industrial Light and Magic for $5 million, and it became Pixar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Think of how many movies have been produced from just that little segment.
Exactly.
But what I love about that, too, is they knew that, okay, we've got a budget, we got to make all this happen, and it all came together to make an iconic movie. Because Leonard Nimoy didn't want to do the movie.
No.
Kirk didn't want to do the movie. William Shatner. William Shatner was like, well, you're making me old in the movie. I want to be young, and they had to talk him into that. The director had to go to him and go, hey, look, people love the underdog. You're human. You're getting older. This is your chance to be iconic.
Yeah.
And he bought into it and did it.
And Leonard Nimoy, you mentioned, did not want to do the movie. He had a stipulation. He said, I will only do the movie on one condition, kill off Spock in the movie. So, spoiler alert, Spock dies in 1982's Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. But after the deal was made, word got out, and people started hearing, oh, Spock dies in this movie. So they had to, they wanted to find a way to kind of shift people's attention. So when the movie opens, it is Lieutenant Saavik, who's a newbie to the Starfleet.
Kirstie Alley.
Introducing Kirstie Alley, as they say in the credits. She's doing the Kobayashi Maru training exercise. At the time, when the movie opens, you don't know it's a training exercise. You think it's actually happening. And basically, the Enterprise gets destroyed. And you see Bones die, you see Sulu die, you see Spock die. You see the whole bridge basically die. So that was their way of throwing, kind of muddying the waters away from Spock's death.
It worked for me at 11.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming.
Of course not.
And it still breaks my heart to think about what we're going to talk about in a minute. because that was such an iconic scene. But not only did all that happen, they also, like you were saying, you reuse so many sets. That set, you look at it now and you're like, oh yeah, they reused that set, and it made a great movie.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder now when I see movies that are $150 million, and I'm like, did it have to be that much?
Well, I think the guy who they eventually ended up hiring to direct the movie, Nicholas Meyer, came in and really kind of said, okay, let's pull all this stuff together, because they had a lot of loose threads of narrative and what they were going to do for this movie, and he basically shaped everything about this is what it's going to be about.
Because there's a few questions in the movie, like Kirstie Alley says "damn it" at one point, and she cries at one point. She's Vulcan; they're not supposed to have emotions, so people have been upset about that. But apparently, there was a secondary story where she's half Romulan.
Oh, I did not even know.
Yeah, and that's why she cried in the scene. That's why she says, damn it. And she has some emotions. But that was never addressed. So, because I remember going, hey, wait a minute. What is she doing all that for?
Yeah, you're such a
nerd.
Fundamentalist.
Yes,
when it comes
that's
to
me.
Vulcan
That's me. I'm a stickler for the Vulcan way.
It was Kirk's arc in this movie is, I think, pretty substantial. I mean, it kind of, as you say, they wanted him to be vulnerable, to be more human. So he starts off, he's an admiral. He's no longer in charge of a starship. He's behind a desk.
He's old and useless, is what they're saying.
Right, and this thing happens where they have to go help these scientists on Regular One, and he takes over the ship. And what's cool about it, and I think what makes sense about it, is he's ready to do it, and the crew is ready to have him do it. They're like,
of course,
Admiral Kirk, yeah, lead us. But it takes him a while to get up to speed. He makes some mistakes.
As I talk about, he gets caught with his britches down.
Quote.
I love his quote from that movie where he's. Oh, you keep quoting regulations, because he's used to doing his thing. He was just rusty.
Exactly. But that's a great scene where they use Starfleet protocol codes to disable Reliant, make her drop her shields, and that's the only way they survive that encounter.
And so many little things about that, too, where he has to use the bifocals. And I love how they covered for that, because you're in the future, you're just like, why would you need bifocals? Well, he's allergic.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But when he has to put his bifocals on and he's like, it's just brutal for him. It's like, I'm old, and they're doing such a great job of setting the scene of, here's a guy that's old, but he's still got some fight left in him.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, to me, I think the biggest thing about Star Trek II, maybe not the biggest thing, but one of the biggest things is the Kobayashi Maru, because that becomes, that's a training exercise for those of you who don't know, where a Starfleet captain is supposed to experience a no-win situation. There's no way to win this training exercise. You are going to get killed. Your crew is going to die. You're going to lose everything. How do you handle it? It's interesting. It starts with that. It talks about Kirk and how he did it. And there's a lot of it even carried over into the reboots of the Star Trek universe.
What I love is a little nod in the reboots where they do that, because he's eating an apple as he does in the reboot, as he does the Kobayashi Maru. If you remember when he's telling the story in Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan, he's eating an apple,
right? Telling Saavik how he cheated
the
test, reprogrammed the computer to create a way to win.
I enjoyed that. Have you ever had a no-win situation?
I think there's many no-win situations, but the beauty of the Kobayashi Maru is you can embrace a philosophy, take it in, and Kobayashi Maru just about any aspect of your life.
Absolutely agree, 100%. Except Spock dying.
And again, this was a big part of the movie, and for me as an 11-year-old watching two of my biggest heroes, Kirk and Spock, have this experience. After the encounter with Spock, with Khan, Khan has activated the Genesis device, which creates life from death, creates new planets, and the Enterprise is wounded and cannot get away from the aftershock in time. they will be destroyed once the Genesis effect happens. But there's what the issue is. There's something wrong with the core, and nobody can go into the room where the core is
without
and
radiation.
Without radiation poisoning, nobody can survive it except maybe one person on board, the Vulcan Spock.
And that, I'm sorry, that's just brutal. That whole scene when Kirk realizes, to me, it's the best piece of acting Kirk's ever done, or William Shatner's ever done, is when that scene is over, and he's like, thank you, Scotty. And they're like, you better get down here. You better hurry. When he looks at Spock's chair and it's empty, if you think about the series, and every time there was a tough situation, he always looks over at Spock, and Spock looks back at him, and it's kind of like a great wide receiver and quarterback that have each other's, and they look at each other like, oh, I know what you mean. They have that thing, and when he looks over there and he's not there,
and he realizes. So he heads down to the to engineering, and Spock is there. He's still alive at the time, and they have their moment. Which is on an ornament on my tree now.
It's a tough moment, man. It's an iconic moment. We talk about Seinfeld did an entire scene based around that scene where they talked about it and referenced it. And just last night, my fiance and I were talking, and I said she was talking about me being a sucker for any teamwork movie, and I was like, I'm sorry, you make fun of me for getting upset at Star Trek 2 or wound up, but I'm like, if you're my best friend, Greg, if you and I were in a situation like that, I can't fathom it. Right. And these guys have saved the galaxy multiple times and been together for 30 years, and they're now separated by plexiglass.
Yeah, and in Spock's mind, it's logical. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or
the one.
Exactly.
I'm going to have a moment.
I'm sorry.
You're killing me.
One other note I'd like to make is Ricardo Montalban from Fantasy Island plays Khan. He played him in the original
Space Seed,
the episode that what they use as the jumping off point for Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan. He's fantastic in this movie.
He is great, and because a lot of people view him as an over-actor because he's so dramatic, but him and William Shatner together, mano a mano, was fantastic.
Well, he's using his eyes. I mean, when certain people would say things and his eyes would just flash his anger. I mean, he is really he's in it.
You bought into it, and I loved it. Was brilliant for people that didn't see the episode of Space Seed, because 90% of the people that saw the movie hadn't seen it. The way he recapped it when Chekhov, and them when they grab him, and he just kind of, you haven't heard the tale?
Yes. Did you to amuse your captain?
Yes, so good. So good. And then he's an admiral.
You thought this was SETI Alpha 6?
Yes, so brilliant.
Yeah. It's a fantastic movie. So we're about out of time, but, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We're going to have some great movies. One of the things about Wrath of Khan that I noticed, it came out in 82. Blade Runner came out in 82. Tron came out in 82. The Thing came out in 82. E.T. came out in 82. Poltergeist came out in 82. There's a lot of movies. We're going to talk about a lot of movies from 1982.
Absolutely. So please share this with your friends. Tell others about it. We want as many people as we can to listen to this podcast.
We're going to have a website. We're going to have a email address set up so you guys can shoot us movies you'd like us to review, questions, information that you might have. Maybe you worked on one of these movies at some point. You could tell us some background information. We'd love to hear from you. Keep listening. Really appreciate you guys checking us out.
Absolutely.
Wrath of Pod. We're here. Retro movie reviews and some cocktails. Need a cocktail?
Yes, I do.
Let's do it.